Well, welcome everybody here in this audience. Welcome to everybody on Facebook, and of course, welcome to all of our candidates. Wanted to take just a quick minute to thank every candidate running for these offices and other offices. It's a lot to put yourself out there and really try to make a difference in your community, for your school, for your county, for your state. So thanks to all of you. Just a couple of quick introductions. I'm Jennifer Moore. I'm the director of the Carbon County Higher Education Center. I have a couple of higher ed staff helping out today. So Janet Garcia is running our Facebook Live, right there. And then Karen Webster is helping with the timing. So for all of the questions asked, there will be times. It will be timed, and Karen will hold up the yellow sign when you've got 30 seconds left on your response, and then she'll hold up the stop sign. So if everyone would just pay mind to her, please. We are going to start with We're going to start with the Carbon County School Board number 1, Board of Trustees candidates. We have 3 seats that are open and 4 candidates. One of the candidates could not be with us today at the last minute, so that would be Mike Young. For the others, we are going to go ahead and start with a 3-minute introduction for each of you. We will rotate speaking order as we go through the questions. And for the 3-minute introduction, Mr. Mann, will start with you. But we suggest to all the candidates that their 3-minute introduction include the following: the duties of the office that you're running for, any experiences that you have had that prepare you to hold that office, and then some of the main priorities and goals that you have while serving in that office. So we'll go ahead and start.
Great. Mike Mann, I am from Rawlins, a Rawlins graduate. The duties of the office of the Carbon County 1 School Board, basically to uphold policy, work with the superintendent and the administration and all of the staff to provide the best experience for our kids. I've served in this capacity on the school board for the past 12 years, and I'm seeking election again. I feel like we're almost there. We're getting close to where we need to be. So I don't feel like we're spinning our wheels. I feel like we have a lot of traction and a good trajectory going. I also serve currently as the vice president of the Wyoming State School Boards Association as well.
Thank you.
So I have to write my stuff down. I'm Brandon Taylor. I am also a graduate of Rawlins High School. I've been back in the community for 10 years, and through that 10 years I've served the community in several different capacities. I've had the pleasure of serving on the school district board of trustees for the last 4 years, and the last 2 years as a treasurer. When I first made my decision to run for this office about 4 years ago, I started socializing that idea with family and friends. And my brother, he gave me the best piece of advice. He said, if you're going to be on the school board, you are dealing with the most personal government body there is, because you're dealing with people's kids. Every decision we make has an impact on a person's child. So I've taken that advice to heart to every decision that I've tried to make as a trustee on the board. I'm very passionate about education. My wife and I strive to be lifelong learners and find joy in learning. And it's a trait that we try and pass on to our 2 children, who are also in the district, 8 and 10-year-olds. And our mission is to keep our children safe, educated, welcomed, and create a collaborative environment for both students and staff, and so that we can all reach our full potential as a district. And I hope to keep doing that mission.
I'm Tanya Evans, and I'm a graduate from Little Snake River. I grew up actually in Bear Oil and then spent 2 years here in Rawlins, and then moved on to Snake River and finished out school there. I've been on the Little Snake River preschool board and the EMS board and the advisory board in bags, but this is new for me doing something like this. The rest of those boards have been things that were asked of me to do, so I did it. I wish I would have wrote things down like you did, but I have a lot of the same views as he did. I'm not sure yet. I haven't been on the school board, but my passion would be the youth and keeping the values that I grew up with here. I mean, I was in the little school in Bear Oil and then here in Rawlins, and I was middle school, high school here, and then even Snake River, and all those years just seeing the difference and the teachers and everything I know at that time must have had good teachers and good school board members, because the values are still here, they're still in our community. And I think that's my passion, is wanting to get on the board to help keep all those things going that have been going, and to pay back also to what I was given.
Okay, thank you all. So for the next questions, we are gonna have a 2-minute response time to each of the questions. After all 3 of you have responded, if anybody wants kind of a rebuttal response, you can have 1 minute to do that. So if you want to do that, just raise your hand, otherwise we'll move on. So next question, we'll start with Brandon Taylor, and then we'll go to Tanya and then Mike. What are some educational gaps or weaknesses in our district, and how can they be addressed?
That's a great question. The reason why I'm having a hard time formulating a response is that so much work has been done, not even before my tenure, to identify those gaps and try and fill those. Let's start with teacher retention. Number one, it's hard to build a relationship with your students if you're turning over teachers every year. Our retention rate over the last 4 to 8 years has decreased, twofold. Our Y-top scores, so the benchmark in which we're measured against the state, the country, have increased every single year. In fact, this is the first year where I believe we had seven different subjects that met or exceeded expectations, and that may not seem like a big deal when you say it that way, but for the previous 8 years, we had, I think, 3 total. So in 1 year, we had seven different subjects throughout our grades that met or exceeded proficiency. I can't pinpoint one place where we need to continue and strive and do better, because I think we're working under a continuous improvement plan, working closely with administration, working closely with the superintendent, and workshopping and identifying those and creating goals not only for the superintendent, administration, but for the board itself, to say, here's what we expect and here's what we should be moving forward towards.
Thank you.
I, not being on the school board yet, don't have the numbers or know the things that he knows. Those are all really good statistics, and I, at this time, am the same. I don't see any educational gaps. I have a son in 3rd grade. My daughter is a freshman, and my other son is a 6th grade. And right now, I feel like I have full trust in our school and what's going on, and all the staff. I'm sure as you get into this stuff, you'll find more, but I feel like our school is doing really well, and I'm sure the county is the same way. I know that the numbers are, I know that these guys are always reaching for the kids to do well, and so as of right now, I don't know if I have any specific educational gaps that I could think of.
I think first you have to ask what type of career opportunities are out there for our kids, and that's an evergreen prospect. It's changing yearly. It's changing twice a year. So we really have to kind of keep our eye on what kind of opportunities are going to be available for our graduates, and preparing them for that. Whether it's in the vocational realm or the academic realm, whatever it may be, we need to make sure that we're enhancing the opportunities. And I would not call it a gap, but I would say that we always can do more and try to do more for our students' opportunities. One of the things that we've done really well the last 8-10 years is develop these professional learning communities. So we have these groups of professional educators, our teachers, and we have amazing teachers in our district. They have the opportunity to collaborate together and really kind of focus down and drill down on individual students' needs. And I feel like we're doing a really good job of creating opportunities for teachers to be the best they can be at what they are the best at. I think that's really helped.
Okay, good one. Okay, next question. Tanya, we'll start with you. What steps beyond the existing policies should the school district take to protect students from violence, harassment, bullying, etc.?
That's a good one. I don't know. Every kid's very, very important to me, and I deal with kids a lot. I teach a tumbling dance class, and I have probably almost every single kid comes through between 1 year old and 5th grade to my tumbling. Last year I had 100 students sewing bags between 1 year old to 5th grade. That's pretty much every kid, and every kid is very, very important to me. And so just, I would never want to see them be hurt or to have problems, and I feel that right now, like Mr. Mann said, our teachers and our staffs are in a place where we can help each kid individually. We're not in these big schools. We're very strong-knit communities that really involve completely around our youth. I know Rollins does as well, and I would just hope, I do trust that the staff is doing what they can to protect the kids and take care of them individually.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderbilt.
And I think I'd start off with saying I'm not sure that we need to add more policy in this area right away. We do have a policy committee that does a great job of reviewing applicable policies when it comes to violence and bullying and et cetera. I do think that what we strive to do is create a culture and a climate in each building that we have that is one of respect for others and ourselves. And I think working on that tends to provide students with tools. And I think that's more important than anything. Making sure that students are comfortable talking with an adult. We do have the Safe to Tell program. It does work really, really well. But I think more so when they come into the building in the morning, in the evening for a practice, whatever it is, our students have to feel safe. That's first and foremost. Great learning can't be done if a student does not feel safe. And I know that our administrators at every building and teachers at every building and our support staff at every building strive to make sure that every student knows that they're in a good place. I think that's important. One of the things that we recently did is we've created a school safety committee. You serve on it as well, Ms. Moore. And so I think by combining in that committee various factions of the town of Rollins, different business actions, and so forth. We have a lot of people involved in there. That's a room full of very well-educated people, and I think we're gonna keep working towards a plan to ensure everybody is safe and well in our schools.
I don't like when you go before me. Now, you and I have talked about. I mean, we've talked about this subject often, and as you said the question, I was writing notes, and I even said to myself, "I bet Mr. Mann's writing the same things." It is really the truth, though. A student can't learn if they don't feel safe, right? There's a hierarchy of needs. If you're not meeting that base need of feeling safe, nothing else can happen. They can't fulfill that self-achievement if they're struggling or feeling scared or worried about, well, I mean, even goes, we talk about safety, I mean, even where their next meal comes from, right? That is part of safety. It's teaching our teachers, our staff, our support staff to be paying attention. There's it goes back to the committees that we put together and the assessments. I mean, this is not a new subject, not just for our district, but for all districts, that we've done a lot of self-reflection into our schools and asked, okay, what's working and what's not? Do our kids feel safe? We spent quite a bit of time last year reaching out to the different schools and asking those very questions, not just from the children, but from the parents, from the teachers. Do we believe that we are providing a safe environment for our students to learn, grow, and thrive? I believe that even the results from those surveys would point to the direction that we are headed in the right direction. And the last thing, I know I only got a second left, but last thing I would say is building that relationship with the teachers, right? As teachers build relationships through those PLCs, through those really individualized teaching. They're not just teaching the class anymore, they're teaching the student. And that's what a PLC really allows them to do. And building those relationships, allowing that trust and allowing that feeling of safety to confide and know when they need help. Thank you. All over it.
So we did put it out to the community that they could submit questions ahead of time for the candidates. We didn't get any for city council, so I just want to pause. Do we have, or not city council, sorry, school board. Do we have any from the audience here? Any questions you want to jot down or raise your hand and ask? You have one? Oh, you're gonna write one. Okay. All right, I'll ask another question, then we'll go to yours. Do we have any on Facebook right now? No? Okay. We'll go to the next question then, and then I'll grab Larry's question as well. We'll start with you, Mike.
Sure.
So if you would just describe your top 3 objectives if you're elected or reelected, well, in your case, reelected to the school board.
Top 3, okay. Well, I would think number 1 is to keep our momentum that we have from an academic standpoint. We absolutely are on a great trajectory. We're doing amazing things in all of our buildings, from Little Snake River even to Rollins as well. I'd like to keep that trajectory going. I think that's really good. One of the other objectives is I'd like to really involve our community more in our schools, because growing up in Rollins, and if you look at Rollins from the in the 80s, I'm going to date myself when I did graduate from high school here, but it seemed like we've kind of gone away from that sense of community and our community involvement in the schools. So that would definitely be another objective of mine. And the third one obviously is keeping our students safe. Keep them safe every day. So.
You had to let him go first again?
Next one, you're up first.
Yeah, okay, perfect, thank you. So I would agree with Mr. Mann about keeping the trajectory, but I think goal number 1 really starts with keeping the relationship, the quality relationship that our board has built with not only our superintendent, but our directors and our administrators throughout the district. As you build and keep those relationships, that trajectory tends to take care of itself, right? If we're supporting, listening, understanding their needs, they know better than us in many things. They're in the classroom, they see it every day. So keeping and building and fostering those relationships between the board and the teachers, administration, and superintendent. I think that's key number 1, and supporting them in their objectives. Number 2, the goal I would like to see from the board is I would like to see us, and this may sound bad, I would like to see us more involved in the schools. We spend a lot of time in a boardroom listening, and we do reach out and we do get information, and if we want more information, we go to the next. But we don't spend, in my opinion, I would like the board to spend more time in the schools. We once had breakfast, remember that? For I forget, there was a big test that day. And we served all the teachers breakfast, and I thought it was a great chance to meet and be with everybody. And the third, it's the really number 1 goal, but again, you can't leave safety out. It's number 1. It's what we talk about the most. How do we keep them safe every single day? Everybody comes in the same way they come out.
I am going to copy you guys quite a bit. I agree, education, academic-wise, I feel like my kids are still kind of young, but from the numbers I always hear, we are doing great right now. I don't have a lot to compare to because I haven't had my kids in. I haven't had a concern. Keeping the kids safe is very, very important to me, and I do feel like I feel the same, that we do keep our kids safe right now. And so I guess my main goal would be, like I said, the values of what we have. Like I said, I went in Barrow, here, and in Bags, and all 3 places I learned things and I grew differently. I kind of was an honorary student. Mr. Mann knows that.
I was her teacher, yeah.
Yeah, he was my teacher in 6th and 7th grade. But I left just loving school, whether it was for what reasons you're there, but for feeling safe and not wanting to leave. And I just want that, to be on the youth right now, that they'll love to be there. They want to be there. They want to stay after school and do the activities and the homecoming. And that's my the part that makes me excited about wanting to be in the school board is I just love the youth so much and love all those fun things and that they get to do and want them to be at the schools and want our towns and the valleys to want to go to every game and want to support the kids, and because the more we're involved with them, the more they'll, you know, academically do better because we're pushing them to do that, and in their sports and anything they want to do. So I think that's my main goals.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question is an audience question, and Brandon, we'll start with you. So the question is, could you be allowing teachers to stay on that are not performing to an acceptable level just for the sake of keeping retention levels up?
The short answer there is no, but that's also not a board function. I want to be really clear on that. You hope, well, you don't hope. You have metrics that are set at the superintendent level, at the administrative level, that they're watching and monitoring and seeing how a teacher is performing, how those classes are performing academically. The board doesn't ultimately make those kinds of decisions, right? The administration makes those kind of decisions at whether or not a teacher is performing adequately or not. But the short answer is no. I would never keep a teacher retention for somebody that's not serving the children, because their number one job is to serve the children. If they're not performing, they're not serving the children. So the retention rate really doesn't matter. Attrition happens. But I'm talking about, when I talked earlier about keeping teachers and our retention rate and keeping those high, we're keeping quality teachers. Doesn't mean that we don't lose a few teachers every year, here and there, whether it be through matters like that they are not performing and so they don't get a contract again, or they've decided to move on to different opportunities. But what we are finding in our retention numbers is that we're keeping the good teachers because they want to, they're seeing the path and they're seeing the collaboration and they're buying into the system, as to use, I guess, a football term, right? They're buying into that system and playing as a team. That's where we're seeing the value. But if we are seeing teachers struggling, I don't want to just cut them loose either. That's what PLC is about. That's what mentorship about. That's why we have administrators that are out there coaching those young teachers to get the best out of them. So short answer, no. Long answer is what I said.
Thank you.
I'm gonna agree with you again. No, I wouldn't want to. Where I have not had to deal with that's very hard for me, because when you think about teachers, you're thinking, you really gotta do research and get into it, because that's their life also. And that's something that kind of makes me nervous, because you hear things there, and I'm a person that wants to know all sides of the story. I want to know everything. Listening to you guys talk excites me, because I do really want to learn about this stuff, and hearing what you guys are saying, you're just kind of above my head right now, because you guys have been there and you know what you're talking about, and I don't quite yet, but I'm agreeing with you guys. I like what I'm hearing, and I agree totally with you about the mentoring on some teachers. I mean, because I would just hate to do something without knowing all sides of that, what's going on.
Thank you.
And I'm going to just kind of piggyback on what they both said as well. I don't believe that we do keep teachers just to retain them because we need them in a certain position, regardless of their performance. And I will say, I mean, from when I taught in Rollins till now, it's more of a coaching type of an approach to developing teachers. I know this was 20 plus years ago, but you would see your administrator maybe once a year. They'd come in and maybe do a walkthrough and sit down and kind of do the hey, I'm going to do your evaluation type of a thing. It is so much more interactive today, and also I feel like within each one of our buildings, our teachers have a family there. And whether I'm teaching in the English department at the high school, or whether I'm on the 4th grade team at the elementary school, there is a lot of people trying to pull you up. And you know what? Teaching is a tough job. One of the toughest jobs that's out there. So I do think we would definitely, we're not in that boat, but I think we're doing the best we can to develop great teachers.
Thank you. Jim.
I can't stress enough what Mr. Mann's saying, and this has nothing to do with re-election or anything, but the coaching, the mentoring, all of that has changed because I gotta tell you, nobody's good on the first day. My wife's a teacher. The first day she stepped into a kindergarten classroom, she came home, scared the bejesus out of her. Gotten a lot better, but nobody's good the first day, so I think we're really set up to teach, grow, and retain quality teachers.
Thank you. Okay, next question comes from Facebook. We're going to start with you, Tanya, then go to Brandon, and then Mike for this one. So the question is, what are your plans for increasing opportunities for training in trades and vocational?
That's a really good question. I, to be honest, don't have an answer to that. Just being so new, everything is right now so new to me. I'm really excited. Being on the advisory board, it's kind of like I just wanted more. You know, I haven't went to a lot of school board meetings unless someone was getting recognized, just for the fact I haven't had any problems or issues, and I do totally trust our school and our school district, so I haven't had to have those situations. But the excitement of listening to what they say, that excites me. I want to be more involved, and I wish I could answer that, but I can't.
Thank you. Brandon.
Oh, sure, going this
We're
way this
switching
time.
it up.
Yeah, we're switching up, that's good, I'm good with that. You know, I think it starts with facilities. It starts with having the space and giving them opportunities, whether it be, you know, the STEM rooms, the welding rooms, you know, using the field out in bags to build the structure where they can start learning, you know, that information. It's foreign to me. I would say, like, you know, veterinary, but it would be foreign to me. That's just really not my wheelhouse. But giving them the spaces in order to have opportunities to take those classes, because they are specialized, right? A classroom, you teaching English, you need some chairs, you need some desks, I need some books on the wall. Teaching a trade, I need specialized equipment, tools, rooms, ventilation. There's a lot that goes into it. So the first one is investing in the infrastructure to make sure that we have the spaces we need to give the kids the opportunity to pursue those trades and those vocations. The second piece comes with, you know, our continued collaboration with higher ed and with whomever else will and can collaborate with us to give these kids, even if it's not in our building, to give them the opportunity to get out there, to get that education, to learn, to get them career ready when they graduate. We talk a lot about career ready, college readiness, whatever that might be, but we want those numbers to be as high as possible when they graduate. And vocations and trades plays heavily into that. So it's infrastructure and partnership with all of the you know, different entities around our community that can help support that.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
And I'm gonna kind of talk about what Brandon referenced a little bit. And it's over the last 6 or 7 years, we've really increased our partnership with the Carbon County Higher Education Center. We're not separate anymore. We're not two different entities out there. We really have a good system going on now. And I think looking at our dual and concurrent enrollment programs and those types of programs are gonna allow for a lot more opportunities. The other thing is, if you look at solar, I mean, that's kind of a wave of the future coming. I know we've had discussions. We probably need to dive in to see what kind of certificate programs or some type of training, you know, in that realm, because we can't just teach for today. We've really got to look 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead to see what's going to be on the horizon, what is the market going to look like at that time. And I think I would just end it with, I've always stressed academics, but I've also stressed the vocational side of it, because to me, we were not doing our jobs as a district if when people exit our programs and they graduate, and that's a great night, one of the most celebrated things in a student's life, but if they're not economically viable, we've got to go back to the drawing board.
I would just pass on that, to echo your comment there at the end. Trades, vocations, absolutely, let's make them career ready. But like you said, if they can't be economically viable, well, if they can't balance a checkbook, right? If they can't, if they can't, there's a lot of things. Aristotle said the reason why it's called liberal arts is it means it's to liberate your mind, right? That's why you have to take math. That's why you have to take science. That's why you have to take English, even at most any level. That's why you have to. It may not be what you want to do moving forward, but you have to, because it allows your mind past that moment to look at things, even if I'm welding or whatever, to be able to have that conceptual view, to think outside the box, because your mind has expanded.
Thank you. We've got 2 more questions for the school board. This time we'll go Mike, Brandon, Tanya. So this question is an audience question. What are your thoughts about mandating school uniforms? What would be the advantages and or disadvantages of having uniforms?
Well, that's interesting. There are some studies out there that would say that a school uniform may decrease bullying, some things of that nature. I'm probably not a big proponent of a school uniform, in the sense that our children are unique in every way. Each child is unique. And I don't really like that cookie cutter approach, because and there's studies for and against a school uniform and that type of an approach. And it's interesting, because what they'll mostly say is that at the middle school level, that is a big plus at the middle school level. Well, when you think about the middle school, and I always called it the hormone ballroom when I was teaching middle school, because kids are trying to decide, what group they want to hang out with, what their best friend is doing. They'll switch friends and that. And so I could see where, in some situations, if we were having just enormous problems with bullying and violence and that and so forth, which we're not, I could definitely I would listen to the thoughts on a uniform. But that would be it.
I'm going to follow Mr. Mann's footsteps and give you a non-answer, non-answer. There again, you really would have to take it by a case-by-case basis. There are a lot of studies for, and there are a lot of studies against. Some of the studies for are uniforms can oftentimes be a unifying factor, which, as Mr. Mann pointed out, decreases bullying, right? That we're all on the same team, we look the same. It also can be a big leveling field for financial impacts of families. Those that have, those that don't, right? And those that are very obviously struggling, and those that very obviously are not. And it levels the playing field by having a school uniform. There's studies both ways. There's also expression. These kids are learning how to be me. And what you wear, everybody in this room is wearing something different. And for whatever reason, you made a decision to put that on before you came to this, right? So there's also that self-expression part, that I'm learning who I am, and what I decide to wear becomes an identifying factor of who I am, what I like. My son, for whatever reason, loves to wear Adidas. I don't know how that identifies or changes his personality in any way, shape, or form, but the man wants to wear, jogging pants and an Adidas sweatshirt every day. So limiting that self-expression can also diminish creativity and diminish, what's the word I'm looking for? You're not going to give it to me. Diminish, the creativity and individualism. Thank you so much. Yep, that's right.
You both had really good points. As a mom, sometimes I thought school uniforms would be great. 4x4, you're done. Right? Easy enough. The same thing, I've thought of that over and over about the bullying. I can see how that can really help, but I just feel like maybe that would just fix one little situation. They would start somehow getting better school uniforms or making them look different, So I think the big with bullying is just stopping it, teaching our kids to be nice, to accept, just to take care of each other, and be nice to each other. That happens in school, needs to happen at home. We just need to be nice to people. So that, I do see that. I don't know if your schools are the same, but I know in Snake River our dress code's very strict. And I do appreciate that because I have a freshman daughter who would like to wear shorter things and things to show more of. And I don't have to be the only one telling her no. She can't go to school and show her. And so I do think the dress code is really important. I love that our boys can't wear their hats in the school. You guys, I'm sure, are the same. But it's taught my boys that when they go in a restaurant now, they take their hat off. Some things maybe sometimes as a mom you forget. So I think dress code's important, but I don't necessarily think we need school uniforms.
Okay, thank you all. Last question, and we'll start this time. Brandon, Tanya, Mike, and really just any last comments you have for the voters.
I guess I would just say, know your school district's going in the right direction. We have the right people at the helm. School board, and I'd say this out loud, but I'll go ahead and say it. A lot of what we do is we look at the policy. We read the policies for the dress code. We allocate funds. We make sure that our campuses are being beautified. We make sure that our kids, that we're giving them the facilities that they need to excel. We make sure that we have, again, good policies in place, that our administrators are doing what they should to coach our teachers. And no matter what, that's not going away January 1st, whether you vote for me or Mr. Mann or any of us, right? We hope that we keep steering the ship in that right direction. We have great administrative directors. They're really doing an excellent job. So beyond supporting me, support the school. Support the people that are on the ground doing the work, and we'll be in good shape.
Thank you. That goes right into what I was just saying. They have it kind of figured out. I'm thankful for the opportunity to come today. This was brand new to me, you can tell. But like I said, I wasn't coming or wanting to get on the school board for changes, more to keep the values of Carbon County and of Rollins and Snake River and everything that we have, that I grew up with and that you guys did, and that's what makes us still want to be here. And it's one of those things, you look back and you think that school was great or whatever, and wonder who was leading or who was doing that, and now it's kind of our time. And I just felt like I just had that want to be part of it, because I do feel like it is in a very good place, and I would love to do whatever I could to help keep it this way. So, thank you.
I think I've been in this game for a long time, and we've had our ups and downs as a district, as a community. But I'll go back to, we have all the puzzle pieces in place right now to do some amazing things. And you can feel it. There's a lot of excitement in our buildings, a lot of excitement with the kids, a lot of excitement at times with the community. And, there's some excitement on the board. And I think that's important to know, that our level of engagement is increasing by the day. And I think that's very vital to creating a successful atmosphere for the community and for the kids. And you go back to, there's a lot of tough decisions you make as a school board member, but at the end of the day, when you go home and you can say, I made the decision that was best for kids, you can sleep soundly and you'll attack it the next day. So.
Okay, thanks to all of our candidates. Wonderful job to you all. And if we could have the Wyoming State House District 15, which we have 2 candidates, if you both could come up, please. Where are you at? Oh, that's you, sorry.
That's good. Good. Nice job.
Okay, so we will go ahead and just move right on. We have 2 candidates for the Wyoming State House District number 15. We are going to start the same way we started the last group of candidates. So we'll start with a 3-minute introduction from each of you. We suggested to all of the candidates that those first 3 minutes include the duties of the office you're running for, any experiences that you have had that prepare you to hold that office, as well as some of the main priorities and goals you have while serving the office. So we are going to start with Mr. Burkhart.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening. I'm Don Burkhart, your state representative for House District 15. And it's been my honor and privilege and continues to be to serve the people of this district. Your concerns and your interests allow me to go forward with what I've done in the legislature. In fact, 60% of the legislation I've sponsored came from people in this district. Their requests, their actions, that sort of thing. A little bit about me. I'm married. I have 3 children, 4 grandchildren. I have a degree in physics. And I've worked in the oil and gas industry and Wyoming's energy industry most of my career. So I'm currently chairman of House Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs Committee. I also chair the Select Federal Natural Resource Management Committee. And through that chairmanship and my leadership, I can tell you I personally saved you and the state $100 million plus over the years. I stopped the road use tax on the highways and tolling Interstate 80. I do support the Republican platform of low taxes, limited government. Your freedoms come first. So with that, and I am an individual rights person. Currently have the National Rifle Association's endorsement and the highest rating they give, which is an A+. So my big support and for the future is the economy of this state and this district. I remember when we had numerous mines, numerous development here, and I think we can bring those back, and we're looking at some of that right now, and supporting those companies with a framework that allows them to succeed, keeps our youth here, because there'll be jobs here. And I oppose this reckless spending from the federal government and the way they've endangered our economy and our state and our nation. So with that and your help, I'll continue to support House District 15, and I'll just let you look at my voting record. It speaks for itself.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez.
I'm Patrick Gonzalez. Of course, I am also running for House of Representatives, House District 15. I am a RHS grad, 1975. I will date myself, unlike Mr. Mann. And I have been a resident of this community for the last 16 years. Many of you who do know me know I am very vocal about local politics, politicians, what I believe they should stand for and how they should act and be responsible. I have an MBA in business administration. I've held numerous positions, CEO, CFO. I've held positions of leadership in just about every career and job that I've had. I believe it's important that as you go into the political realm that you do have some experiences in dealing with people and all of those aspects of that position. So I am well versed in managing and dealing with people, understanding budgets, how that all applies to you as a voter. So I think it's vital that having that experience comes into play when running for office. I believe that I bring a level of new, fresh ideas, thinking outside the box. Currently, there are 60 representatives in the state of Wyoming, 51 which are members of the Republican Party, 7 which are Democrats, 1 that's an independent and 1 that's a libertarian. I think this is one of the issues that we have not only locally or at our state level, but also at the federal level. Too many third-party candidates are not recognized, and we need to have more of that. We need to have a different approach because what we're seeing is these splinters that are happening on a federal and even at a state level. And I believe that my opponent here would probably even attest to that even at the state level, just because you're a part of the GOP doesn't necessarily mean that you're recognized as a true Republican. So that's why I am no longer a Republican, and I am running on the Libertarian Party. So I think that is a vital thing to keeping our politics moving in the right direction. So that's why I'm running.
Okay, thank you both. And again, if the audience has any questions, if you would please jot them down and bring them up forward. Actually, if you bring them up forward, that'd be great. Thank you. We are going to change speaking order, so Mr. Gonzalez, you're going to be first on this next one. What is your decision-making or what will be your decision-making process to decide how you will vote on a bill?
Wow, he's right out of the gate. You know, that's a good question, but obviously, I think it's due diligence is one of the biggest factors in the political realm, that you have to do the research that you are given in order to make a informed decision when a bill is presented to you. I know that is throughout my career when I've had to make decisions, whether it was personnel, whether it was business, whether it was budgetary, you have to gather as much information as you can. You have to get the facts. You have to weigh the pros and the cons. You have to determine, is this a good idea? Is it a bad idea? How will it affect the people that you work with? And I think in this particular case, as the good representative said, you want to make decisions that benefit the entire body of our communities and of our state, not just the Republicans. It means all of the people of the state of Wyoming. So in order to do that, you have to have good information, you have to have facts, you have to mull it over, you have to do your due diligence, and then when you make those decisions, you do it because it's going to benefit the entire body of the state.
Thank you. Mr. Burke.
Jennifer, thank you. So first, let me say that I don't sign pledges. I don't promise anybody I will vote one way or the other. By doing that, you give away your vote to a third party. What I do is I consider any legislation, how it affects the people of this district, how it'll benefit you or not, and vote my conscience on it. I do my research up front. I look at the facts. I will ask other people, but I vote my conscience in favor of the people of this district.
Okay, and we are gonna switch speaking order again, so we'll start with Mr. Burkhart. This question did come into our website before today's forum. So the question is about the two-man crews for railroad workers and the community safety that the railroads run through. So the question for Mr. Burkhart is why you voted against it, and for Mr. Gonzalez, your opinion on the two-man crews for railroad workers.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, I did vote against that. The main reason is we're looking at autonomous cars. We're looking at vehicles that drive themselves. About 70% of the people over age 60 want those, and that they want to be able to maintain that transportation. If we're going to allow driverless vehicles on the road, I don't see the necessity of having trains, running with multiple crews. They can almost run themselves, and railroads are looking at that option also. That doesn't mean I oppose people or the crews. It's what you get. Additionally, this is a labor matter between the unions, the railroads themselves, that they ought to be solving internally, not bringing to the legislature to have the legislature enforce on them a rule. This is a business matter that they should solve internally, not bringing everything, as so many people want to do. We want legislation to see our side. So that's why. It doesn't belong in the legislature, even though people will argue the safety aspects. Currently, remember when they took the cabooses or way cars off the trains? Nothing really bad happened. So that's the reason, and those are my ideas, my thoughts.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez.
As a former employee of Union Pacific Railroad, I know that was discussed some 15, 16 years ago, doing away with the two-man crew, actually going with one man, and even the possibility of remote. I will tell you that Union Pacific right now, those trains are actually controlled by an individual who sits in North Platte, Nebraska. They can track that train from wherever it leaves to its destination, and if they need to stop that train, they can. But I do believe, in my opinion, that when you do that, you have a level of safety that is a concern, because there's nobody on that train. Yes, you can see it with a computer and a keyboard, but you can't tell if there's an obstruction on the track. You cannot tell if there's an animal on the track. You can't tell if there's a human being on the track. So doing away with crews and minimizing them, I think, would be a very difficult situation. But I also agree with Mr. Burkhart that that is not an issue that should be legislated. That is something that should be dealt with by the union, by the workers themselves, and they need to come up with a solution. I know prior to this, they had their issues with the 12-hour work days. They now were mandated federal rest, and of course they didn't like that because they were losing money. So it's always a tit for tat, and they need to come up with a better solution that makes sense for all parties.
Okay. This next question is from the audience here. The question is, what are your thoughts now that the Supreme Court has reversed Roe versus Wade and is leaving it up to each state? And Patrick, we'll start with you.
I knew this question was going to come up. And actually, we talked about that on the way here. I will tell you, and this is my opinion and my opinion only, I believe that overturning Roe v. Wade was a mistake. And it doesn't matter what your religious affiliation, what your religious beliefs, what your personal opinions or your own personal thoughts are on the matter. As a man, I've never been pregnant. I will never get pregnant. I will never have a child. I've had a child. My then wife gave birth to that child. But it's not my place, it's not my position to tell another human being, even if I were a legislator, what they can and cannot do with their own bodies. Mr. Burkhart talked about personal freedoms. In my opinion, when you have a party that says we are the party of freedoms, we are the party of law and order, we're the party of this and that, when they make a decision like that, they've taken away the freedom and the rights of every woman that lives in this country, regardless of their age. My opinion is, I have no say in what a woman does with her own body. It's not my decision. It should never be my decision, and it should never be the government's decision. It should never be the state's decision. That is part of the idea of freedom. We have the ability to make choices. Do we agree with those all the time? Not necessarily. But I do think overturning Roe v. Wade is open to Pandora's box that we'll never be able to close again.
Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you. So if you read the decision of Roe versus Wade, the decision was based really on the constitutional issues. And if you go back to look at the original vote on Roe v. Wade, even some of the people who voted in favor of that said they didn't feel it was constitutional. They voted in favor of it because that's what they wanted to do. The current Supreme Court has ruled that it was unconstitutional, the original decision. And that being said, I would support the decision. It belongs to the states to make a decision. You have a closer relationship with the people in the states if you wish to push one side or the other. Myself, I believe abortion is wrong. We have to speak for the unborn child. Whether anybody agrees with that or not, that's the case. Someone has to speak for that child and has to continue to do that. There are very serious implications here. And we also must realize if we don't want people to have abortions, then we have to provide a network and a way for them to care for that child in the future, to make that child a viable part of our society. I would support the decision on constitutional grounds, but I also object to abortions.
Okay, thank you. Next question also came from the audience here, and Mr. Burkhart, we'll start with you. Where do you stand on the medical marijuana issue?
Okay. with medical marijuana, we have to remember that marijuana, regardless of what President Biden just recently did, which was to me just a political ploy for the election, and that it is still illegal, any marijuana is illegal federally. I've talked to the Marijuana Growers Association in Colorado and looked at what they have to say. There are some serious problems even with the medical marijuana. I would really like to see the federal government conduct the same sort of review and test they do with all other drugs, which is blind tests, an evaluation, and that people objected to the COVID vaccine, that it was rushed. They wanted it to be tested longer. I think we should do the same thing with marijuana and do it in a scientific manner and then make a decision on whether to legalize it or not. You have to remember that 7 to 8 years after a state legalizes medical marijuana, it further legalizes recreational marijuana. And right now we have a tremendous mental health and substance abuse issue and crisis really along the Interstate 80 corridor. So I would say and that we need much further study on it before we can make an informed decision.
Thank you.
If any of you are familiar with the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937, I think you can go back and see that criminalizing marijuana was really I'll probably catch hell for this, but it was a very racially charged decision that was made by legislators back in 1937. After they opted to go ahead and enact that Marijuana Tax Act in 1937, the LaGuardia Committee put out a report, and this was through a lot of physicians and medical professionals that disagreed with that and said that marijuana was essentially, it's a plant, it's not a Schedule I drug like they like to tell you it is. And there have been case studies all over Europe, Asia, that have essentially put out that the effects of marijuana are actually no worse, certainly not as harmful as, in this case, man-made manufactured drugs, opioids, Oxycontin, et cetera, and having been the CEO of a mental health and substance use facility, I can tell you that alcohol is the primary, if you want to call it the gateway drug, that destroys more lives than marijuana ever will.
Okay, thank you both. This next question came from Facebook. Mr. Gonzalez, we'll start with you. And the question is, do you support Medicaid expansion?
Well, again, I think this gets into the idea of healthcare, that we as citizens should have the opportunity to determine where we get our healthcare, who we get our healthcare from. And I think, I know that was a big issue in the mental health realm. And I do think that it is necessary that they need to revisit that. Many of our legislators denied that or didn't want to deal with that. I think a lot of that, and I may be wrong in this assumption, but they believe, this idea of having too much federal control and receiving federal dollars. But in some cases, it's necessary to take care of the people that live in your state. Not everybody can afford health insurance. Not everybody can afford to see the doctor. And that's why we have a lot of the problems that we see today. So I do believe that the Affordable Care Act, while it has some merit, there are things in it that definitely do need to be looked at and reconsidered. But as far as I can tell, people should have the right to make the decisions as it relates to their own health.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you. So with Medicaid expansion, the state has looked at that, and it's purely a financial matter of whether you do that or not. A number of states that have expanded and taken the expansion are now looking for ways to get out of it. The federal government has promised at least an 80%, probably 90% share, but there's no guarantee. That's merely the federal government's promise to do that. In looking at Wyoming, it's estimated that 8,000 people would lose their current medical coverage, their insurance coverage. Many people work for medical insurance. They would lose that under Medicaid expansion. Additionally, if you compare what it would do plus what existed prior to Obamacare, Wyoming had one of the best programs in the country to pay for those people with critical medical needs. Say they needed continuous dialysis. The state had a great program. Under the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, that went away. I've had people come to me and complain that they had great coverage, great service, and now they're struggling with meeting their own needs for that long-term care for, say, dialysis or something like that. So I don't think Medicaid expansion is the answer. I think more jobs and better jobs with good insurance are a much better way to go, and that's what we need to be working to.
Okay, thank you. Any other audience questions for the moment? Okay. Our next question then, Mr. Burkhart, we'll start with you. What is your position on having the Wyoming Superintendent of Public Instruction appointed by the governor instead of being elected by the voters?
I think we need to stick with the program we have currently. That's been a topic of discussion for years. One of the important things, and most people don't realize, besides being the superintendent of education or any of the other 5 elected jobs, maybe except the governor's, their job is to sit on the SLIB board. The SLIB board actually controls most of the money in the state. Rollins is currently asking the state for a grant to fix the water system. That will be approved or denied by the SLIB, the State Land and Investment Board, which is controlled pretty much by the 5 elected officials. That gives the people a say in who's on that board and how they will act when it comes to that money. So I feel that there's the separation of powers issue. You have 5 independent people that will vote for those things. So I think the superintendent needs to remain elected by the people so that people have control over that. That way the people also direct the education of the state and the broader implications of that education. The superintendent doesn't directly say, buy this school book, have this course, but the superintendent administers the funds for what's called basket of goods, the courses that are provided and that sort of thing. So I think it gives the people a say in who that individual is and what their background is, what their philosophy on education is, and those are the vital points. And I think we need to keep electing the superintendent of education.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez?
I would agree. I believe certain positions should be determined by the voters. I think that's, I'm sure many of you have heard some of the issues with concerning the run for our representative in Washington, D.C. And I believe some of our legislators were adamant that they wanted to essentially take that right away from the voters, that they had the say in who was elected. And I do think that is important because of what Mr. Burkhart talked about. When I worked for the city of Rollins as a grants administrator, and I had to deal with the SLIB grants and obtaining those funds for many of the projects that the city was working on. If you're aware and if you've been up to date on everything with the water issue currently, because they've applied for numerous SLIB grants and have been denied for those things. And it is important that we have individuals that sit on these boards that do make decisions that impact our communities in a positive way. And sometimes the appointments can be very tricky and one-sided because they're working in a different realm versus working for the people in those communities. So I think it's a good idea to continue to let the voters decide who they want for public education.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Gonzalez. What goals do you have as a Wyoming representative that would help our community, and what barriers do you anticipate for you to do this?
Well, 51 Republicans, 7 Democrats, 1 Independent, and 1 Libertarian. That's the problem you're going to have. But I think even Mr. Burkhart can attest that just because you're a Republican in the state of Wyoming, that does not give you carte blanche, meaning that you're going to be able to pass bills through, because I know he's had some in the past that have failed, and he and I have had many conversations about some of these things. And you know, it's always a challenge when you are in politics, whether it's working across the aisle or working with your own constituency. We've seen a paradigm shift that now we're getting some even very extreme conservatism in the state of Wyoming, making it more difficult for more moderate Republicans and certainly the Democrats, the one independent and the one libertarian. Those issues are always going to be on the forefront, but I think it's important as a representative to work with those individuals. You may agree to disagree, but it still boils down to doing what's best for the people in your district, doing what's best for the people in the state of Wyoming. And that's what you have to attempt to do, is work with those individuals to make progress for the state of Wyoming and for its people.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer, thank you. So goals, it comes down really to two things, the economy and jobs. We have to give our people here good jobs. We have to have a way that they can keep those jobs, and we have to bring them to the community. And that's it. The economy, it's a mess right now, nationally, not just Wyoming, but I think Wyoming can work around that. But we need to strengthen that economy. We need to bring those jobs here. We need to look at those. Currently, they're looking at this part of Wyoming to build the world's largest carbon dioxide air capture system, literally in the world. This is billions and billions of dollars. Now, you can argue whether you think air capture is a good idea or not, but it's an economy coming to this part of Wyoming, pretty much. It'll be at least in the southern half of the state. And that tremendous jobs, tremendous construction jobs, and continuing through future, a lot of good, high-paying jobs are coming. The barriers to that are just that. It's new technology. It's different technology than we're used to. And that's something we're gonna have to overcome ourselves, plus for the legislature to see the opportunity in those new industries and those people who wanna come here. And we tend to kind of keep Wyoming in a box. It's a square-shaped state, and we kind of like that. But we're gonna have to learn to get out of that box and think of these new economies and some of the things that we're doing. The state is looking at high tech, and again, high-paying, good jobs for the people to stay here. Our kids can get an education and stay right here. Thank you.
Two more questions. One actually speaks to something you were just saying. We'll start with you, Mr. Burkhart. What concrete steps can we take to keep our young people, especially our educated young people, here in Wyoming?
Okay. So keeping our educated young people here, and I really don't like that term. It implies that they all have to go to college. The previous panel talked really about career and technical education, and that needs to be a vital part of it. The state has the WIP program, and I apologize, we use these acronyms and don't always remember them. Wyoming Workforce Innovation Program, where the community colleges and the university work together to fill those jobs that are needed. And we need to break that circle of companies won't come here because we don't have an educated workforce, and we don't have an educated workforce because there are no jobs. I think we should start educating the people first. I've had a number of companies come to me lately and want, from the community college level, production workers that can handle production activities, control room operators, those sorts of people. And I think we need to meet those needs. Community colleges need to become a lot more flexible and agile in quickly putting courses together that need to be handled. And some of them are doing it. I just had a discussion Friday with Dr. Dale at Western on doing some of that, and some new ideas that she's working through, and it has come to the legislature saying it might take money. I think the legislature needs to give her the money and to generate those programs, and they're going to be different programs than we've had in the past. But I think they're going to be great, and they'll keep our youth here. From the university level, again, those high-tech jobs, for, say, example, IT, looking at 2 more data centers coming to Wyoming. So I think the jobs are going to be there. We need to make sure we've educated the people. Dr. Seidel, President Seidel from the university will be here in a few weeks to talk to the kids, and I think that's a great move to get them to really look at those jobs for the future.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez?
Well, aside from education and having an educated workforce, I think you have to have a workforce. We've seen it here in Rollins. How many local businesses in the last year and a half have gone under because they have no people to work for them. And I think one of the biggest areas of concern, as the Representative Burkhardt mentioned it, the economy, but it is also creating opportunity and that helps bring those jobs. One of the big issues that has surrounded Wyoming is our dependency on energy, oil, and gas. While I still believe, and to this day, that fossil fuel is never going to go away. It's a necessary evil that'll always be there. We, however, in Wyoming, with a very small population base, have to diversify our job markets, our opportunities. And I think Mr. Burkhardt just talked about it, is anytime we have these opportunities, we as a state have to really look into these things to bring them to the state of Wyoming. And I know some people are gonna look at me and say, we want Wyoming to stay at 500,000 people. Well, I'm one of those individuals that thinks, I don't want it to stay at 500,000 people. I want it to grow, I want it to flourish, I want our young people to have opportunity. The only way that's going to happen is you bring those opportunities here. We can't turn our backs and continue to think, well, how are we gonna keep young people here when they're going to jobs out of state, to other places? So we have to look at opportunities, we have to grab onto them and keep them here.
Okay, thank you. And last question for you both. Mr. Gonzalez, we'll start with you. Just any last comments you have for the voters?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate, the higher ed for having this forum. It's always a good opportunity not only to express your opinions and your points of view, but also to learn a little bit more about the people that your opponent. But I know Don quite well, so I know exactly what he's about, and I will tell you he's a great individual. I respect him immensely, but I'm hoping that I can garner some votes and get some new and fresh ideas at the state capitol. So I appreciate the time. Jennifer, I appreciate your moderating this forum, and I appreciate you in the audience and those out on Facebook for paying attention, and get out there and vote.
Thank you. So I think I would end saying my vision for Rollins, Sinclair, and District 15 remains as it has been, which is these are the really great communities of Wyoming. There is so much to offer here from the people, and really that's what sets the tone for what we do. And I think we need to continue that. I think we can find ways around the issues and the problems that we have, especially with economy. And I remain committed to that economy. We built Rollins really on a energy economy, and I think we can expand that to include that and those things that support that energy and that. And I'd like to continue to do that for all of you. Continue to honor your trust in me and the dedication you've showed to me, and hopefully I show the same dedication to all of you and support you, and I would ask for your vote the 8th of November. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to you both. Okay, if we can have the two Carbon County Sheriff candidates come up, and we can take a 5-minute break. It's like some people want to stretch, so we can take just a few minutes. You're welcome. So maybe we'll just set up. get started. So welcome to both of our Carbon County Sheriff candidates. We are going to start the same way we did with the last panels of candidates. So for the introduction, you will each have 3 minutes, and then the questions after that 2 minutes, and if you want a 1-minute rebuttal, just let me know, or we'll keep moving on. And then we'll alternate who answers the questions first and second, we'll alternate the order. So we'll go ahead and just start with the introduction. Again, I know that you guys have heard this several times, but we suggested that the candidates talk about the duties of the office that they're running for, any experiences that they've had that prepare them to hold that office, as well as some of the main priorities and goals that they have while serving that office. And Alex, we'll start with you for this one.
Sounds good, thank you. First of all, thank you to the Higher Education Center for hosting us tonight. My name is Alex Bakken. I'm currently a patrol deputy with the Carbon County Sheriff's Office. My career in law enforcement began about 12 years ago when I graduated from the University of Wisconsin with a degree in criminal justice and a focus in legal studies. Shortly after that, I took a job as a probation officer with the Arrowhead Regional Corrections in northern Minnesota. Northern Minnesota was great, but there were no elk, so I packed up everything I owned and I moved to Wyoming, and I took a job at the Wyoming State Penitentiary as a correctional counselor. Shortly after working as a correctional counselor, I transferred to the security division where I worked as a correctional officer before coming over to the sheriff's office where I started as a detention deputy and now I'm currently a patrol deputy. Working in both of those agencies, I've filled a variety of different roles, including firearms instructor, less lethal munitions instructor, basic tactical medical care instructor, field training officer for the patrol division, cell extraction instructor, and a PREA investigator at the DOC. Statutorily, the Sheriff's Office is required to fulfill 4 separate duties. Those include maintaining a jail, providing court security and paper service, keeping the peace, and coordinating search and rescue. My premise for running for sheriff is fairly simple. I'm a firm believer in that government should reflect not only the needs of the people, but the voice of the people as well. And I feel that the Sheriff's Office is no different. As an elected position, I feel that we should operate an office that reflects the needs of the people and the voice of the people. That way we can be held accountable by how well we address those needs and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike, go ahead.
My name is Mike Morris. I am a lifelong resident of Carbon County, pretty much born and raised here. I started my law enforcement career in 1989. I was hired by the Carbon County Sheriff's Office as a detention deputy. I spent a few months in that role, and then I served several leadership roles within the Carbon County Sheriff's Office. As a sergeant, a jail lieutenant, a patrol sergeant, and then ultimately I was appointed undersheriff in 2005, where I maintained that position until I retired in 2013. One of the things that has kept me in law enforcement was my desire to serve the community. It's been a lifelong desire of mine. During the time that I was at the Carbon County Sheriff's Office, I oversaw many of the investigations that you read about in the paper, some of the largest ones, search and rescues. Going forward in Carbon County Sheriff's Office, I've written a mission statement. I'll briefly read that real quick, and that's where I'm going to try to focus on the Carbon County Sheriff's Office. If elected to the office of Carbon County Sheriff, the following will be adopted as our official mission statement. The mission of the Carbon County Sheriff's Office shall be to safeguard the constitutional rights of all its citizens, protect life, investigate and reduce crime, impartially enforce the law, provide assistance to victims of crime and others in need, provide a safe working environment for staff while also providing for their physical well-being and mental health, ensure staff has the training, knowledge, and experience to accomplish the assigned tasks and to meet the personal goals of individual staff members, be a leader within the community, and to set an example of what Sheriff's Office can and should be. That's where I'd like to take the Carbon County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, thank you. We did get several questions submitted to our website prior to tonight's forum, so I'm gonna start off with some of those. Mike, we'll start with you for responding to this first one. What are your short and long-term goals and strategic plan for hiring and retention in the sheriff's office?
Short-term goals would probably be more along the lines of retention. As I said, I think the well-being of staff, making sure staff's taken care of, making sure they have the training, the knowledge, and the tools to do the job. And probably foremost, giving them good direction and letting them do the job. Empowering them to be able to make decisions. Short-term. Long-term is it, regardless of who becomes sheriff, we will come midway into the current budget. So as far as offering incentives, hiring extra people, that is gonna take a lot of talk and a lot of planning in order to get that accomplished. And it takes 2 years before you have a deputy that can go out and do the job adequately. We're not talking just about patrol. The patrol is kind of at the forefront of everything because that's what we see. But there are a lot of folks behind the scenes that the jail, communications, record staff, maintenance staff, a kitchen they take care of at the jail. So there are many other aspects other than just patrol. But mostly is providing for, encouraging an environment when everybody can succeed and also obtain their own personal goals as well.
Thank you. Alex?
I'm glad you asked that one because it's one of the reasons why I decided to run for sheriff. And as a patrol deputy, I get a unique firsthand view at what issues we're facing that are chipping away at that retention. Right now, our turnover rate is roughly over 90%. We're bleeding staff faster than we can replace them, and we're not seeing them quit law enforcement. We're seeing them quit the sheriff's office. So short term, what I would like to do is offer some type of a hiring incentive, and then incentivize staff development. Right now, we don't incentivize instructor certifications. We don't incentivize bachelor's degrees or associate type degrees. And when your employees don't feel like they have skin in the game, they're not going to have a lot of reasons to stay, especially when there's other agencies in the area that offer these types of things. Long term, I think one thing to look at is a little more of a robust longevity raise, whereas say after every 5 years you receive a 5% raise or a 10% raise. Right now we're looking at about 2% after every 5 years, which after the year of inflation we had is still 8% behind the curve. So I think those are two things we can look at as far as longevity and retention goes. The important thing to remember is at the end of the day, when we experience this high turnover rate, it's not just the employees of the sheriff's office that are feeling the brunt of that, but it's the members of the community as well. We're spending more money sending people to training, hiring, and recruiting that would have been saved if we could just retain the people that we hired in the first place. And as a rural community and a relatively small community, I want to forge long-lasting relationships between law enforcement and the community we serve. And if we're constantly turning over employees, we just can't do that.
Okay, thank you both. Next question, also submitted via our website before tonight's forum. Alex, we'll start with you for this one. In your tenure, how many arrests have you made? Out of those, did you get any convictions based on your investigations?
I don't keep a tally of how many arrests I make. I've arrested more people than I would have liked to. And yes, I've received convictions, or I've got convictions based on my investigative work. You know, for me, keeping a tally of arrests isn't a point of pride. That isn't a way I like to measure how I do my work. If I can resolve a problem without having to arrest someone, I think that's a win for me and a win for the community. And I think if you talk to most of the officers at the department, they're kind of the same line. We don't talk about how many arrests we had in shift briefing, and we don't keep tallies on it. So I think arrest numbers is a poor litmus test of success, and I believe that if you're going out in law enforcement trying to get arrests, you're not doing it for the right reason. At the end of the day, I'm a community member just like you are, and my goal is to help the community in any way I can, not to simply arrest people and write tickets.
Okay, thank you. And Mike?
Much like Alex, I didn't keep a tally. I wouldn't even venture to guess over the course of 24 years how many arrests I had made, or convictions for that matter. I can tell you one thing, that I'm fortunate enough to any case that actually went through the court system, there were convictions, but I kind of felt the same way, as if I was put in a position where I had to arrest somebody, I had the bad day. I mean, we've been around officers that that was kind of their goal when they got started that evening, is see if they could throw somebody in jail. That wasn't me. I don't really believe in that as well. So fortunate enough to have a long career, 24 years, and I'll stand by that.
Okay, thank you. And once again, if any of the audience has any questions for the candidates, please jot those down and bring them up. Next question, Mike, we'll start with you for this one. So it's a two-part question. Can you explain what the role of the Sheriff's Department is in making sure that the schools are safe? And how can you ensure that school safety is a priority?
I cannot speak to what the Sheriff's Office has in place right now, because I'm not aware of it, nor do I think that we probably ought to broadcast that as well. But the Sheriff's Office would play a vital role in school safety. There's several communities within Carbon County that do not have municipal law enforcement. So Carbon County Sheriff's Office would be the first responder. And I think that the Sheriff's Office ought to play a very integral role in any planning that takes place as it regards to school safety.
Okay, thank you. Alex?
Can you repeat the second part, please?
Sure, the second part is how can you ensure that school safety is a priority?
Okay. So first of all, I got in a little bit of trouble for this last time I was in a forum, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys, because you, the community, deserve to know how we operate and what protocols we operate under. We currently don't have any OPs for school safety, such as active shooters. OP is an operational procedure. We currently don't have a policy that addresses that issue. We currently don't require staff walk-arounds at the various schools. So luckily, part two, in order to ensure a safer school in the future, is going to be pretty easy to accomplish and pretty exciting to get underway. You know, immediately I think we need to get staff in the school in an organized manner where they have access to the blueprints, to the layouts, how the schools are laid out, what times different classes go on, what times different sporting events happen, and then to establish not only an operational procedure but a policy as well. So if something ever bad does happen, and I pray it does not, but I would rather be prepared to address it than unprepared and hope it never happens.
Okay, thank you. Alex, we'll start with you for this next one. This was submitted to our website before tonight's forum, and it's a little long. So, with the county assessor keeping taxes as low as possible, it is no secret that the lack of funding is causing huge problems for the Sheriff's Department. As sheriff, how are you going to address the lack of funds for positions, fleet vehicles, and proper equipment? Is this something you think you will have to collaborate with your county assessor to potentially find a balance to better fund not only our Sheriff's Department, but the county as a whole?
So I think in the long term, yes. I mean, collaborative partnerships are kind of what I base my operating procedure on. So, hi, Ms. Snyder. Long-term relationships, I think, are going to be beneficial when it comes to that. Fortunately, right now, in the short term, fortunately and unfortunately, I will say, we're not spending all of our money right now in our Sheriff's Office budget. We're giving back pretty big chunks of money each year where we could use them in a variety of different means, such as transportation. I mean, we still have to buy our own handcuffs. There's some things that we can use that money for right now without giving it back. So luckily, as it sits right now, we don't really have to take more money from the taxpayers to fund our operational needs. What we need to do is maybe restructure our current budget in order to meet our operational needs without demanding more of the taxpayer.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
And while I also believe that a collaborative effort would be good, the purse strings are held by the county commissioners. They are the ones that have actually say over what comes in the budget. You prepare a budget, you go before the county commissioners, and you present that budget, and there are times that they ask for cuts. Sometimes the sheriff wins, sometimes they don't. But I don't think it's the role of the sheriff to go to the county assessor and try to determine what taxes they collect. I believe that would be the role of the county commissioners. Although I would certainly make my needs well known. And I think that's the short of it.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a Facebook question? Scroll that for me. Okay, so this one we'll start with Mike. What is your opinion regarding the county sheriff's office being physically fit, and if necessary, do you have a plan for a physical fitness program?
Physical fitness, it's absolutely important. I mean, you need to be able to be physically fit to go out and do the job. There are standards that post set forward, but it's a one-time shot. You go up, you go through post academy or through the academy, and you do there's nothing after that. But at the same time, physical fitness is a lifestyle, and it's hard to mandate a lifestyle. There could certainly be incentives, and I think should be incentives to those that participate in wellness programs that work out, providing with the equipment. But if you start setting a physical fitness standard, then we're also going to have to pay the staff to reach and maintain that standard. And it's a lifestyle. It's hard to dictate lifestyle in a job.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. That's another topic that's pretty important to me as a sheriff's deputy. And Mr. Morris is absolutely right. We're required to pass a physical fitness assessment once, and that's when we're hired before we go to the academy. Sometimes the academy will have you do it up there if you don't perform satisfactorily. Once that's done and you come back to your agency, at least in our case, once you come back to the sheriff's office, that's it. There's no incentive to stay in shape. There's no requirements to maintain any sort of physical fitness. Now, I can tell you from experience, I've been in two pretty serious physical altercations while employed at the sheriff's office, and I can tell you that if I wasn't in relatively good shape, the outcome might have been very different than what it was. So I'm a big proponent on physical fitness. The problem is, like Mr. Morris said, mandating physical fitness standards brings with it a whole arena of other complications. What I would like to do is incentivize it by implementing a biannual physical fitness assessment that's completely voluntary, and then rewarding it by either comp time or extra vacation time. The problem lies within the fact that we haven't had any physical assessment standards for the past however many years, so to suddenly implement it and make it mandatory overnight would be a pretty harsh change and frankly unrealistic. So that's where I think a voluntary biannual physical fitness assessment would fill that gap, and it would incentivize people to not only stay in shape, but maintain that shape.
Thank you. And next question, we'll start with you, Alex. It's very important that government entities work very closely with the sheriff's office. What is your plan to accomplish that?
My plan for working well with other government entities is basically one of the principles that, I believe is government is a reflection of the people's needs and the people's voice. As branches of the government, I think we deliver a better service to the people we serve by working together more effectively and more efficiently. Communication between governmental entities is crucial, and I feel in first responder agencies that's even more paramount. I feel that the better we communicate with EMS, with fire, with search and rescue, we're going to be able to provide a better service to the community, which at the end of the day, that's why we're here for, or that's what we're here for.
Thank you. Mike?
I think it starts with building personal relationships. Not just the government entities themselves, but the individuals, as Alex said, the fire departments, search and rescue organizations, EMS. It's building those personal relationships that can be accomplished by simple things like training together, making sure that everybody knows the roles, responsibilities, and how each other operate. So, I mean, building relationships should come very easy. Sometimes it doesn't. I think that I've built a reputation of building relationships over the years. If bringing problems to me and addressing those problems, but I think it's really just as simple as building relationships.
And this next question comes from our Facebook Live. Mike, we'll start with you for this one. Are you up to volunteers from the community helping as needed? There are properly trained veterans and other members who would be willing to give their time to help. And they note appropriate training is understandable.
No, absolutely. In fact, one of the things that, one of my goals within the first year is to develop and get a reserve program going. I have, with the budget, there's a significant amount of money that's been set aside for overtime. You can't ask all the staff to give up their time off all the time. So I think a reserve program, basically with the understanding of the money that I understand is in the budget right now, if we developed a reserve program, basically paying somebody $20 an hour would garner about 4,000 hours of time that we could put towards a reserve program, because there are retired law enforcement veterans that are out there. But that's one of my goals is a reserve program. So the answer is I feel very strongly about it and think it can be done very simply.
Okay, thank you. And Alex?
Absolutely. In order to help address the current staffing shortages we have, I think we're forced to kind of think outside the box and look at alternative solutions, because clearly, what we have right now isn't filling the need of staff. And I think a good way to help augment the current staffing that we have is to explore those volunteer communities. Now, I will say that with an asterisk, as long as the proper safeguards are in place as far as insurance, pay, and that type of coverage goes, because at the end of the day, mitigating liability is a very important thing, not only for the sheriff's office, but for the county as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the audience, or any questions? If not, I just have one more. No other Facebook questions? Okay, so let's give them 3 minutes each, and Alex, we'll start with you, and just last comments for the voters. What do you want them to do?
First of all, thank you all for showing up, and thank you all of you who are watching on Facebook Live. At the end of the day, I'm not here to try and convince anyone to vote for me. I'm not here to try and sway your mind one way or another. Instead, I'm simply here to tell you, what I am about as a patrol deputy and what I believe that the sheriff's office should be and what it could be. I heard a lot when I first came over to the sheriff's office that people would do 30 years here and then retire, and now we can't even keep people for 12 months. And I would like to turn it back into that agency where people come to and they do their 30 years and then retire. And I want to, reaffirm the point where I'm a firm believer in that government should reflect not only the needs of the people, but the voice as well. And I think the sheriff's office is no different. So in the future, I would like to operate an office that directly reflects the needs and concerns of the people as voiced by the people. And if my value system aligns with the vision that you have for law enforcement in Carbon County, then I would be honored to have your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
And I would also like to thank the higher ed and for putting this forum on to allow us to reach out, answer some questions, and let the citizens of Carbon County kind of get to know us each a little bit better. Alex alluded to that when he started, he'd heard that Carbon County was a place where people would come do 30 years and retire. I was part of that system. 24 years of that, I was part of that leadership that developed that fostered that got that going. I feel I actually take a little personal, I feel responsible in some ways the state of the sheriff's office is right now. Because after I left is when some of these things started going around. I'm not saying I'm the glue that held everything together, but I was certainly a big part of that. The last 9 years of my employment, I was undersheriff. 20 of the 24 years I spent at the Carbon County Sheriff's Office, I was in a leadership role. I was part of that. I know what it took then to maintain that, to get people to feel comfortable, to give them the ability to grow in their personal goals, reach their personal goals, grow themselves. And I'm very proud of that. And I would just suggest that if that's what you want, then I'm the guy, plain and simple. Carbon County invested a lot of time and a lot of money making me the leader that I am. And I hope that Carbon County puts me back to work and puts that back to work. I'm ready for the challenge, and we can get this done.
Okay, all right, well, thanks to you both, and thanks to all the candidates here tonight.